Velkommen og god dag alle sammen. This is the first video where I'm going to be speaking about the translation and interpretations of the gods or deities in Norse mythology. As some of you know, that the deities and gods in Norse mythology all have, most of them have very clear translations, and I know you've wondered why this is when you're looking at the myths like that, and it's because these were actually representative of different forces of nature. When you start to translate these things and interpret the gods' names, you start to realize that these aren't just fairy tales made for kids. These aren't just unbelievable stories that just defy the laws of nature and physics. That these stories actually represented something much more real, different forces of nature and things like that. So that's what we're going to be doing. This is my first video in this series, and I'm going to translate all of them. I'm going to translate all of the gods, deities, and give the best interpretations that we have. And it's not just me doing this. There's lots of other people doing it, but I just wanted to make some videos about it because it seems like no one else is doing that. So today we're translating Sleipnir, Odin's horse, Odin's eight-legged horse. And this is actually a pretty easy one. Like I said, there's going to be some really difficult ones to translate and interpret, but Sleipnir is actually pretty easy. So we have it right up here. Sleipnir means in Old Norse the slipper or the sliding one, something like that. So many people in the community agree about what this is, and so do I, that Sleipnir was the power or the force that would carry your soul or your spirit outside of the body. It would help your Sleipnir, the slippery one, or the sliding one. It was the force that would help slide your soul out of your body. As we know, and as I'll talk about in other videos, Odin is translated to the soul, the mind, the spirit, and even inspiration and poetry. Odin is a very, very complicated one, and that's a long subject. But basically, really quickly, Odin is you. Odin is your spirit. When he travels throughout the realms, that's your spirit traveling like that. So Sleipnir being Odin's horse, it makes sense because it carries him around, and he's the one that carries him through different realms, and Sleipnir is the force that helps the soul leave the body. It's the force that carries the soul out of the body, and this happens when you die, yes, but it also happens lots of other times. It happens when we sleep, when we dream, when we're meditating, or if you're maybe taking part in a shamanic ritual. Anytime where your spirit leaves the body, Sleipnir is the one that Sleipnir is the force that carries that. We don't have an English word for it. That's why back then they call it the slipper or the slider. Which is, how do you really explain a force that helps your soul leave your body? I mean, that it would be impossible to have one word to explain that. So they use Sleipnir, and most people agree on this. A lot of scholars and the people who are actually looking into these things. We know that the eight-legged horse is actually associated with all kinds of different shamanic practices, not just in the Norse world, but in different places in the world too, especially Mongolia. But pretty much everywhere in the world where we have a pagan religion, it's some sort of animal that is associated with a shamanic ritual, and just whenever the soul leaves the body. So Hilda Davidson is a scholar that notices this thing in different parts of the world, and what it is basically just whatever the animal was the most trusted, whatever animal that people felt the most bond with, that was the animal that helped carry the soul out of the body. So we see birds in some cases like this in different parts of the world instead, but in the Norse world or in Mongolia, of course, horses are very important, so it would have been horses that would have been associated with this. Also, she notes that there is some cultures in the world where there are 4 pallbearers, especially in India. So this makes 8 legs, just like Sleipnir has the 8 legs. and Sleipnir carries your soul into the realm of the dead. You have 4 pallbearers who are also carrying you to the realm of the dead, and they also have 8 legs. So that's a pretty interesting little connection there. And when we look at sources in the Poetic Edda, Odin mentions how Sleipnir is the best of all horses, and of course it's the best and most important of all horses because it's the only horse that transports and carries your soul outside of the body into the different realms, into the spirit world, or to the afterlife, or into the next life. And don't forget, Sleipnir is not just the force that carries your soul outside of your body, it's also the force that helps slide your soul back into your body when you wake up from dreams, or when you're reincarnated, or when you've been meditating and you need to bring your soul back into your body, bring your spirit back into your body. We see also Odin writing on Sleipnir when he went to see Balder to Hell, realm of the dead. So Hell just means dead, guys. It's translated to Old Norse. Hell means dead. And Helheim is just the realm of the dead. Translated, that one's pretty easy. So Odin needs Sleipnir to carry him to the realm of the dead. He can't just go there by himself. Also, a cool thing to note is that Sleipnir is produced by Loki and Svadilfari. And when you notice in the actual sources, if you read any summaries or any of the children's books that just make a bunch of stuff up, like most of you have, it says that Loki and Svadilfari, the horse, and then Loki, when he transformed himself into a mare, that they came together, had sex, and they created Sleipnir like that. But in the Poetic Edda, which is the real actual source on these things, it's they didn't say anything about having sex. It's just it's produced. Sleipnir is produced by Loki and Svadilfari. So as I'll speak about more in another video, but Loki is translated and interpreted as the catalyst. Loki is the adrenaline, and Loki is the wild force in you and in all of nature that creates change in all of the world and the universe. Any kind of inspiring force that creates change. And I'll go into that a lot more in later videos because that's pretty complicated. And Svadilfari is just translated to, most people believe, as an unlucky traveler, or a misfortunate traveler, or the one who takes part in an unfortunate journey. So combine the catalyst with the misfortunate traveler going on a journey, and you get death or some other aspects. To combine those two things, the power that creates change and the force that creates change, and combine that with an unlucky or misfortunate traveler on a journey, and you get things like death, or your soul leaving the body, or things like that. So it makes sense that when these two come together, they create Sleipnir. They create this power that helps your soul slide in and out of your body. So that's the general belief. Most people who really look at the subject believe this, but of course it's open to interpretation. All of this stuff isn't open to interpretation. We don't have a time machine, and we can't go back 1,000 or 2,000 years and ask our ancestors what these actually meant. But things that make sense like this just makes the most sense. So anyone who comes up with any better interpretations, please let everybody know. But this is at least the interpretation and translation that most people agree on in the community. So this is about it. I'll have a lot more videos about this coming soon. Like I said, I'm going to do translate and interpret all the Norse gods. Some of them have been translated and interpreted by experts already. Some haven't, but we're going to be looking at all of these. And the important thing to think is, I just want to say that before I finish the video, stop looking at language like we know it today. The Old Norse and any primitive culture, they have just such a way more complex language than we do today. We're looking at one word, and we're looking at a few words to try and explain something in science, but they didn't have that back then. They were just a way more spiritual people, and they had a much richer language filled with symbolism and hidden meanings and multiple meanings. So that's really the main points and kind of perspective you have to take when looking at this thing. The way we know language today is not how language would have been thousands of years ago. Or even today, if we look at tribal communities today, we can see pretty much that it's about the same thing. They have a way more complex language filled with symbolism and all those kinds of things. So that's about it for this video. I'll get to the next one soon.